What an absolute disaster. As a bit of a preface, I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan. I've been really enthusiastic about the IP until relatively recently, until we started getting all these remakes and all these weird spin-offs. Like, we've gotten like 6 Dragon Quest games in the past couple of years that weren't great. We got Dragon Quest 3 HD, which took way too long to come out considering what it was. We got Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD. We got Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined, which is not as good as the 3DS version. We got Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, which was a complete disaster. And through all of this, we had confirmation that Dragon Quest 12, The Flame of Fate, was in production. And what happens? What do they do today? They confirm that Dragon Quest 12, Flame of Fate, has been canceled and they're rebooting the game with a different team and a different title. Okay? Dragon Quest 12, Beyond Dreams. Again, if there was any doubt that there was something going on behind the scenes at Square Enix to make the Dragon Quest IP so mishandled, I think it's time to acknowledge that it's real. Okay, there's something wrong here. Okay, everything's falling apart. Nothing's been good. Everything's just been a rehash or a disappointment or a downright travesty in some cases. And here we have a Dragon Quest Day presentation where they announce exactly 2 games, both of them disappointing for completely different reasons. And I've already talked about Dragon Quest 12 for a little bit, but there's a lot of lore about this game that mainstream audiences don't know. We've seen 2 out of the 3 guys responsible for Dragon Quest die in the past since this game was announced. We've seen we've heard all these rumors about how the game was going to be darker in tone and how it was going to be an action game. Everything we heard going into this seemed to indicate that this would be a game that completely disrespected Dragon Quest's identity and branding. Okay. They really wanted early on to try and appeal more to Western gamers. And that was always doomed to fail. Okay. Dragon Quest is just not that um appealing to Westerners in general. But it's becoming more popular here because of its Japanese identity and its unique, and its legacy. Okay, if they had done another 10 years of games on the same level of quality as Dragon Quest 11, they would have been fine. But instead, they decided to just completely change the IP, completely adjust the tone, completely go for a completely different audience. And as a result of that, it seems like the end product was so terrible that they straight up rebooted the entire game. They straight up pulled a Metroid Prime 4. And in the end, Metroid Prime 4 was turned out really, really well and was great. But going by the trailer for this looks so much worse that it's really not even funny. When you look at this, when you look at what this game is trying to do, all they show us is the goofy looking protagonist running through an empty field and not really doing a whole lot else. You don't see any other characters. You don't see and you don't get an idea of what the game is actually about. Basically, we got a minute long teaser and a basic synopsis about how it's about your character, the protagonist, getting prophetic dreams, the most generic concept imaginable. This was old and played out when Zelda did it in A Link to the Past. What are you talking about? I don't understand how it took 5 years to come up with such a generic concept. So, for comparison's sake, when Nintendo delayed Metroid Prime 4 and confirmed that they had to reboot development, they announced the game in 2017, they showed off the Lego, and in 2019, they came out and acknowledged that the game was being rebooted under Retro Studios. Okay, so within a couple of years, they came out and they confirmed that there was something wrong with the production. They apologized for it. They handed it over to a different developer, and 6 years later, we ended up getting Metroid Prime 4, which was excellent. Okay, Metroid Prime 4 was an amazing game. In comparison, The Dragon Quest team insisted that like Dragon Quest 12 Flame of Fate, the original version of Dragon Quest 12 was going along swimmingly, that everything was going well, that there was nothing wrong with the production, that they were still working on it, that nothing was wrong. And then they come out with this shit, which confirms that like a lot of the rumors that there were all these behind the scenes issues with the game and with its development. Like they denied that there was anything wrong until they couldn't hide it anymore. Until they came up with this shit. You know? It's like, what are you talking about? Like what did you think was going to happen? Like again, they tried to hide the fact that this game was going through development hell, and there were all these signs of it. You know, all the remakes we've been getting, all of like the weird spin-offs, like everything they've been doing has been to try and like keep the brand alive as they develop Dragon Quest 12. But Dragon Quest XI came out in 2017. Okay, it's been almost a decade since that game came out. You know, that game is old and dusted now, and it's taken them this long to put out a follow-up. Like, how many great RPGs have we seen from other developers? You know, Tales, I think, has been putting out bangers like constantly, and they've been doing a way better job at like re-releasing old games and keeping the brand relevant and like selling to a new audience. Like the Dragon Quest team completely dropped the ball when it came to maintaining their brand since the release of Dragon Quest XI. Dragon Quest XI was a great game, one of my all-time favorite RPGs, one of my favorite games on Switch. But at the same time, the fact that they dropped the ball immediately afterward with everything they've done with games like Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince, and like Treasures and stuff like that, like it's just been complete and total slop. I've been saying for a long time that the Dragon Quest IP is doomed the instant that like Yuji Horii steps back from development, and it seems like we're already in the early stages of that happening, where everything that's not directly made by the core Dragon Quest team is just completely unplayable and completely ridiculous. And now, for the first time ever, we're seeing mainline Dragon Quest products struggle to get to market and really struggle to find their audience or what they want to be. Essentially, Dragon Quest 12 is shaping up to be like probably the last one we ever get. Like I can't imagine they're going to put out another one after this, considering like the tumultuous development cycle and like just the current state of Square. Like it feels like after this that this very well may be the end of the IP. And I'm sure it'll exist in some capacity when it comes to like future spin-off titles or like, re-releases or whatever. But for all intents and purposes, if this is Yuji Horii's final Dragon Quest game, this very well may be the end of the IP. If that's true, this may spark the end of one of the longest running and most iconic JRPG franchises there is. In a lot of ways, every major RPG franchise owes a lot to Dragon Quest. This is the series that inspired Final Fantasy. This is like, the influence can be felt in Pokemon today. Like, this game was a huge trendsetter at the time and has proven itself to be one of the most enduring, long-lasting video game franchises in Japan. The fact that it might be reaching its natural conclusion is disheartening. It's very disappointing, and it's not something that I, as a fan, would want to see. It's something that I didn't want. It's something that I fought against. Because I was speaking out about Dragon Quest 12 like from the moment we saw that logo. Honestly, like I've said this before, but like they never should have shown off the logo without like an actual proper trailer. Like everything they told us about the game initially is not going to come to pass. Like Dragon Quest 12 Flame of Fate is simply never going to be made, and they're instead making a completely different game and calling it Dragon Quest 12. Like honestly, this one probably should have just been Dragon Quest 13. Honestly, like it feels as if Square has really lost the plot and they don't understand how to make compelling RPGs anymore. Like, In the year 2000, we got like Dragon Quest 7. Okay. We got Dragon Quest 8 in like 2003, 2004, something like that. 9 in 2008, 10 like in 2010, and then like 11 in 2017. Like these games take longer and longer and longer and longer to come out, and increasingly it's starting to feel as if they're running out of ideas, and they're just coasting off their legacy. Like looking at this Dragon Quest Monsters game, the new one, like instead of like, making it a real sequel to the Dark Prince where Sorrow's like doing his thing after, saving the world from his father or whatever. Like instead of like doing that, we're making another like chibi Dragon Quest like protagonist spin-off game featuring the brides from Dragon Quest 5. It's about Nira and Bianca hanging out together as kids. And that's all we know about it. And I'm just like, first of all, nobody cares about Bianca. Stop trying to make Bianca a thing. Nobody cares about the ghost hunt. Like, yeah, Bianca's a complete joke. But like the fact of the matter is that they couldn't even come up with like a more interesting concept. This is like their new thing now, is that like, oh yeah, we're gonna take two characters that don't go together and just make an entire spin-off game with them as children, right? Because Dragon Quest 11 did that with Dragon Quest Treasures did that with like Eric and Mia, right? Where like, they're brother and sister, but they're in a game together now. And it doesn't make sense, and like considering 11's continuity and what happens in that game, and it's just like I just found it so baffling how the why they came up with what they did. Like Dragon Quest Treasures, I think as a concept would have made infinitely more sense if they just came up with like original characters instead of just like tying it to Dragon Quest 11 and like unnecessarily complicating it. Like it just like people aren't getting excited for these games by seeing like decades old characters essentially. And that's my opinion looking at this, is that like, I look at what they're doing with like, I look at the image of like Bianca and Nira together, and it's like, what could they possibly do with this to make it interesting? And the question is nothing. Like, I never want to see Bianca near Nira to begin with. Like, I don't even like that whole bit in Dragon Quest V where you're like choosing who to marry. Like, bro, we're marrying Nira, okay? It was never even really an option. Like, like I've never understood that mentality that like there was some dilemma here, okay? Like it's frustrating. Like they're just obsessed with trying to turn Bianca into a meme. I don't get it. Like they're trying to like get people to unironically like her, and it's just not gonna happen. But the bigger problem with this is the fact that like Dragon Quest V is a Super Famicom game that never came out in English, that is like over 30 years old. Okay? Like, do you really think kids today are going to see Bianca and Nira and just be like, "Oh man, I love Dragon Quest V." Like nobody under the age of 30 even knows what Dragon Quest V is, okay? It's an all-time classic. It's definitely like an innovator. It really pushed the boundaries in a lot of ways. It's definitely something that's like remained relevant for enthusiasts, but the simple fact that they're gearing this Dragon Quest Monsters game for kids and then trying to like get you hyped for it by putting Bianca and Nira in it. It just shows a complete lack of self-awareness. That like kids aren't going to care about Bianca and Nira. Like I don't care about Bianca. So like again, when even like hardcore fans are telling you that like, yeah, we don't want this, we would prefer to have original characters. And if if it's anything like Dragon Quest the Dark Prince, they're probably going to butcher the plot anyway, making the inclusion of classic characters downright offensive and ridiculous. If this presentation told us anything, I think it shows that Dragon Quest is very much a franchise that has become stagnant. It stopped evolving, it stopped growing, it stopped doing new innovative things, and is more interested in preserving its legacy than actually making bold new steps in the RPG genre. And the sad thing is that this was completely unavoidable. Like, it was very possible for Dragon Quest to become a worldwide phenomenon and be on par with Final Fantasy or Pokemon as kind of like, the biggest, the most classic JRPG franchise. But the simple fact of the matter is they dropped the ball so many times that it really feels like it can't get picked up again. Something like Zelda went through its periods of like stagnancy and kind of grew and evolved from it. But Dragon Quest has been so stagnant for so long that I genuinely don't think it's ever going to recover from it. Like, I feel as if this game is going to be very, very limited in what it can do and what it can offer people. I feel like this is a game that is going to be a massive step down from the mass appeal of 11 and be a game that's just made for no one. I feel like Dragon Quest Monsters, the new one, I don't even remember the word, the Withered World, right? Like, I can't imagine that game is going to appeal to anyone. It's not going to appeal to new players. It's not going to appeal to Dragon Quest V. Like, it's not going to appeal to gamers. And this is a reoccurring problem now because I think Dragon Quest was able to coast off its legacy for the past couple of years. It was able to coast off the success of 11. It was able to coast off the remakes. It was able to like put out a couple of bad like spin-off titles, but this is a big mainline title that we've waited like about a decade for. And the fact that they butchered it this badly goes to show you just how little respect they have for the audience and just how they can't produce a good game to save their lives.